What's up guys, I'm BTC. Mercy is getting another really big nerf. This character has been changed quite a bit in the last couple months, so now I have to ask the question, is it possible for Mercy, specifically the resurrect ability, to ever really be balanced? In games like Overwatch or Dota, where there are a good amount of characters that have lots of different abilities and types of attack and all that sort of stuff, making small changes on a regular basis is a good idea. But the emphasis is on small changes, so stuff like adjusting a character's attack from 16 damage to 15, or maybe changing an ability cooldown from 6 seconds to 7 seconds. Those sorts of things should be commonplace. Those minor tweaks in the balance can make the game a lot better. But what Blizzard has been doing is making these really large, sweeping changes all at once, and they kind of do them only once every couple months. And what ends up happening is you have the game in this really awkward state in between these big changes, where something might be just broken or way too strong, and you just have to kind of sit there as a player and wait for Blizzard to roll out another one of these really big changes. So in case you missed it, these are the changes that Blizzard put on the PTR in the last couple days. Now, all of this is a nerf to her ultimate, but the biggest change is that it no longer grants a bonus charge of resurrect, and that is really problematic for the character. As I said in my previous video, this is going to completely destroy the character. That's not an exaggeration. And as far as tournament play goes, I would expect her to have less than a 5% pick rate, almost being completely replaced by the other support healers. So why is the character like this? To understand it, we kind of got to go back a little bit. The original version of Mercy, where Resurrect was the ultimate, was almost never used in tournament. I think she had usually around a 2 to 3% pick rate for most of them. Why was that? Well, because the Resurrect, although it could be powerful, it really didn't do anything during the fight. All it did was reset the fight. So you would essentially lose it, and then your team would just come back and you would get a second chance. Whereas some of the other supports, like Lucio or Zen, would have abilities that would keep your team just straight up, prevent them from ever dying, and then you could actually win the fight entirely. So the res just was underwhelming. But then Blizzard decided to change it so that res was no longer the ultimate, and instead it was a regular ability. And it instantly became one of, if not the most powerful ability in the entire game. Even with a 30-second cooldown, one of the longest cooldowns in the game, it was still incredibly powerful. And that just happens to go with the nature of what the ability does. And for whatever strange reason, Blizzard just doesn't seem to understand that Resurrect is inherently powerful. It's either going to be really, really strong or really, really garbage. There is almost no middle ground with this ability. So let me give you a quick analogy to kind of explain it a little bit better. Imagine your character is a car on a racetrack. It's moving about 50 miles an hour, being somewhat effective. As you start to get beneficial effects from your teammates, like getting healed or damage amp, that sort of stuff, your car will incrementally start speeding up to 55 to 60 to 70. As your car starts taking damage, it will begin to slow down, and also other negative effects like the Discord Orb from an enemy Zenyatta will start to slow your car down. So instead of going 50, you're now doing 45 or 40, 35, that sort of deal. Well, the way that Resurrect works is it doesn't incrementally speed up or slow down the car. Instead, it takes a car that's currently going 0 miles an hour, because the car cannot affect anything in the game. You're basically just waiting to respawn. There's nothing you can do. Getting hit with that Resurrect instantly puts you right back in the middle of the fight. It's like going from 0 to 100 in a second. That is the difference that Resurrect is from all of the other types of buffs and debuffs in the game. It doesn't just speed you up or slow you down, it brings you from 0 to 100 instantly. That is why Resurrect is so inherently powerful. Now, the first version of this new Resurrect as an ability that Blizzard gave us was genuinely overpowered. People like to throw around that word a lot. Oftentimes, it's not accurate, but with the case of Mercy, when she was first changed to resurrect as an ability, it was really true, because she could res 4 people in the span of her ultimate. You would have the regular one, and then you could use 3 of them during your ult. That was insanely powerful. So Blizzard realized that this was way too powerful and that it needed to be nerfed. So they went through a series of changes on the PTR. Most of them were garbage until we eventually got to what we have now on live, which is still arguably too strong of an ability, because now you have the regular use of res, and then you can ult, and you have the bonus one. On the PTR, currently, you only have the regular use of the res, and then the ultimate is just kind of garbage tier. So what Blizzard is trying to do, and this is something that they actually tried in the past as well, is they're trying to make the ultimate so bad that it compensates for the strength of the resurrect ability. And that's just a really terrible way of trying to balance the character. This actually reminds me a little bit of Roadhog Hook 1.0, where most of the character is just garbage, but you have one amazing ability that kind of like carries the character to where it needs to be. But in the case of Mercy, just having that res and a bad ultimate is not going to be good enough, and she's going to be completely replaced by the other characters. Now, some people might be happy that the character is getting nerfed into the ground and that it's not going to be used anymore, but that's just really bad for the game. No character should be so bad or nerfed so much that it's just not considered to be really useful anymore. I don't want the game to have really strong characters and really weak characters. I want the game to be balanced, and unfortunately, that's something that a lot of players really don't seem to want. And this kind of goes into a whole nother discussion. I don't want to trail off too much, but the general idea is that a lot of players want their favorite characters to be buffed and the characters that they don't like to be nerfed. They're not really interested in the game actually being balanced, and that's really problematic because Blizzard listens to those players. I don't want to look at tournament stats and see characters like Symmetra with a 0% pick rate, Doomfist with a 0.5% pick rate, while at the same time, characters like Winston, Diva, Tracer, and Mercy all have 70, 80, 90% pick rates. I don't think that's a very good balance for the game. Now, it's never going to be the case where everything is equally picked. That's not going to happen. But I don't like the idea that you have some characters that are so overwhelmingly powerful and then others that are just considered garbage tier. That's bad game balance. I don't want that. It makes the game less fun. Getting back to Mercy though, Blizzard has to come to the realization that an ability like Resurrect is inherently powerful. And because of that, there's only a couple of things that you can do to properly balance the character, the ability, and the game. You either, one, just remove the ability from the game entirely. If it's too powerful, if it's too difficult to balance around, then just get rid of it and give Mercy something else. Now, it just so happens that I have a really good idea for a Resurrect replacement ability that would not only be awesome and fun to use, but would very much fit in line with what Mercy is and who her character is in the lore. But because this is already running a little long, I'm gonna save that for another video. Subscribe if you want to check that out when it gets released. Moving on to option number 2, and I'm not really sure that this is entirely the best way to go because it leads to something called power creep, which generally isn't very good either. You give the other support healers in the game something that is on an equivalent power level with Resurrect. The other supports need to have something that is good enough to make players think twice about having that Resurrect available. Because if you take a look at the other support healers, what abilities do they have to offer that could possibly compare to the power of the Resurrect? What does Ana have? Lucio, Zenyatta, Moira. They all have really cool abilities, but none of it is even close to the power level that Mercy has. Feel free to make your over 9,000 power level jokes, but the fact of the matter is, Resurrect is and probably will continue to be one of, if not the most powerful ability in the game, and the other supports just don't have anything good enough to keep up with it. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely some things that are pretty good, like Zenyatta's Discord or Lucio's Speed Boost, but they're just not at that level. So that's pretty much the only options that Blizzard has if they want to actually balance the game. Either remove and replace the resurrect ability, or give the other support something that is on an equal power level. Other than that, just destroying the rest of the Mercy character for the sake of keeping the res just doesn't make any sense to me. So what do you guys think about all of these changes? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to check out my Discord server. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, all that stuff. The links are down below. Thanks for watching. Remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault. Also, special thanks to all my Patreon supporters for helping to make this all possible. If you'd like to see what kind of cool rewards you can get for supporting the channel, check the links on screen and down below.